Charlie's Moist Criticals. I know this is a video about One Piece. Let's see where he's at and what he thinks. We've been following Charlie's journey through One Piece for like a year and a half now. The last thing I remember is that he started liking it, but before that he got flamed by the entire internet because I think he didn't like Luffy.
Years ago, I embarked on an adventure. Like Ferdinand Magellan circumnavigating the globe, I set sail with people waving goodbye, wishing me luck on my expedition. I vowed that I would catch up with One Piece. Over 1,000 episodes of this show, I was starting from square one, and it didn't matter how long it took.
Wait, what was he watching One Piece or was he watching the main? I'm pretty sure he was watching the main series.
I was going to do it. No matter what comes, I certainly will, and it'll be a load blown with the knowledge that I watched every episode of this show, and I am proud to report that 5 years later, I'm almost there. I just keep getting asked where I'm at in my One Piece journey, so I'm going to give you the update now. I'm knocking on the door of the Egghead arc, and I've been doing these like almost annual updates on One Piece and my thoughts on it, so I figured it was about time since I'm moving past the longest arc in the show so far, which is Wano. Now, I said that I watched every episode. That's just a bold-faced lie. I have been using One Piece the entire journey. I truly would not recommend to my worst enemy to try.
Okay, yeah, I keep flip-flopping on this. If he's been binging the entirety of One Piece, that's a very, very different journey than I went on. I had a much different journey compared to him then. I've been flip-flopping on One Piece a lot, because the more I see of One Piece, the more I'm kind of like, I wouldn't recommend this for a first-time viewer, personally. I think a bunch of it is cut weirdly, but I don't know. Because I think like if I was going to rewatch One Piece, I would probably use One Piece. But on a first time through, I don't think I would.
Try and watch this show without One Piece or Onigashima paste, because there is so much fat that gets trimmed in these to make it so much better. So some of the arcs people really didn't like from the anime, like Punk Hazard, I actually enjoyed because I watched it through one.
Nah, Punk Hazard is just not good. Punk Hazard, now that I'm fully caught up, there is no recency bias at all. Punk Hazard is probably my least favorite arc in the entire series. Everything, from the villain to the setting, it's a winter island. I should love Punk Hazard. I did not. The weird dragon at the start, which just seems kind of weird and arbitrary. It's like, yeah, this is Vegapunk's island, whatever. It just seems weird. I don't like Punk Hazard. I really don't. The coolest thing about Punk... There are two cool things in Punk Hazard. It's a very good pause, I know. There are two cool things. Number one, the fact that the island is split in half by Aokiji and, what's his face? I keep mixing the names, whatever. Sakazuki, I think that's his admiral name. The dude. That's number one. Number two, Law splitting the gear. Everything else in Punk Hazard, mid.
One Piece, which made it much tighter, much snappier, put a smile on my face. I got all of the juice without any of the pulp, and I really appreciated that. So that's my little pro tip for anyone out there that wants to follow in my footsteps with this path I've carved watching over 1,000 fucking episodes of an anime. Don't watch the filler. Don't do that. Don't subject yourself to that. It's not worth it. They wouldn't do that to prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. So I'm gonna.
And then there's me. Guys, I'm gonna watch all of One Piece, including the canon fillers and including the non-canon fillers, and I'll make a YouTube series about it.
Give you my whole thoughts on the show thus far. Spoiler alert, I fucking love it now. It was a brutal journey in the beginning. I had to really push myself to get through it, but with my iron will and resolve, I was able to persevere and get to the greener pastures. A lot of people call it Stockholm Syndrome. I just call it an acquired taste, and my taste buds.
Yeah, the weirdest thing about Charlie's experience was that it took him this long to like really get into it. And the weirdest thing for me is that like I think the card game is what really made him lock in. Like, because when he started saying like I'm in love with this series now, it was when he started playing the freaking card game. Because I remember I saw Zoro's flashback, I saw Baratier, and then Arlong Park, and I was fully locked in. I was like, this is gonna be amazing, because I was expecting something completely different. Charlie was like all the way. I still don't understand why people don't like Skypiea. When I was first watching Skypiea, I'm pretty sure I put it at the top of S tier for me. It's only looking back that I was like, a bunch of the things I don't like about Skypiea is only because of what happens later. But my first time through Skypiea, I loved. My biggest problem with Skypiea is still that none of it mattered. In the sense that, like there's this whole grand plan and whole grand game where everyone is dying and the voices keep going out and it changes literally nothing. It felt kind of weird. And here you're forgetting which one is canon and which one is otherwise. Yeah, that's my biggest thing with One Piece. I always mix up what's a theory, what's even legit. I don't even know what's real anymore. He switched to One Piece at Fishman Island. That's probably a good call. His gateway into One Piece is definitely unique. Absolutely. Because, like, not liking Luffy for that long, that's wild. I don't think we ever got One Piece on local TV, no.
A little more refined, and I appreciated it. Also, I just think the show's quality improves drastically 300 episodes in. Now, first, before diving into this,
I assume he's talking about visual quality. Because I think in a lot of ways One Piece, like in terms of the technical aspects, aside from animation, I think in a lot of ways One Piece kind of gets more loose because it was trying to do things to make it work for a long-term anime.
I want to thank the sponsor for today's video. Big thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring.
Which is time travel.
Diving into this, I want to thank the sponsor for today's video. Big thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring the video.
Opera GX? Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there.
You've heard me talk about them endlessly. You also see it every single time I'm streaming. Opera GX is my go-to browser, and it has been for years. I think it's the best browser available. Just feels like there's endless customization options that have it be exactly how you want it. Keep all your messaging apps on the side so everything's nice and convenient. The GX mods also just got an overhaul and have been improved.
I've never used these.
Splash screens, custom UI, themes, backgrounds, you name it, wallpapers, everything has been bumped up.
GX mods? Why is it Dark Souls? I think I would go insane if I did this.
The quick import tool at Opera.
By the way, you know why you need this browser? Remember when I opened a YouTube video and Charlie's face popped up? And that was like a weird Opera GX thing. That's why you need this browser. It just sometimes gives you a small little surprise.
Super quick to take whatever your existing browser currently is and bring all of those settings over to Opera for a seamless transition over to the better browser. And the GX mods are really just a beautiful addition to an already super clean and efficient browser. And it's even getting a facelift. So it's getting a new updated look, making it even more fresh and clean. So definitely check out Opera GX. There's a link in the description, and thanks again for sponsoring. As I said, I just didn't really like the show in the beginning. It's because the pacing is just glacial, and there is just so much nothing. Like this nothing sandwich of emptiness that just happens so frequently in the early seasons. And it's, I'm gonna be honest here, sports fans, you're not gonna like to hear it. The animation has aged pretty poorly, which is probably why they're...
I actually don't think so. I think, this is probably going to be my hot take. I think One Piece went through a weird plastic era. Right in the middle, One Piece was ugly. Now that I look back at some of the, like, right between pre-time skip, the end of pre-time skip and post-time skip, the very start, One Piece had this weirdly clean, plasticky look for a little bit. Wano and everything after Wano is gorgeous. The start of One Piece is gorgeous. The middle, that's what it had. I feel like the I've talked about this before. The episodes of East Blue, these are like they're just straight up ugly. Like I don't like. There's always the screenshot I use. Like this right here. I think I just set it as my wallpaper accidentally. This does not look good to me. It looks too vibrant. It looks like too overbearing. There is no focal focus at all. This is not the actual anime. These are like the episodes of something. I don't like this animation. And this was the this was like right in between. Let's look at like Whole Cake Island. Let me see if I can find something that is like a good example of what I mean. They use like a lot of shine and glow on things that I wasn't a huge fan of. Can I finally... There's so much other crap here. Whatever the case, you see what I mean, basically. There was a time where One Piece did like super... This is Marineford, that looks good. Okay, there are no screenshots here, never mind. But, like, they sometimes did these super shiny, glowy, weird scenes that I wasn't a huge fan of. Everything afterwards looks gorgeous. But the start of One Piece, Zoro flashback episode. The start of One Piece, you're gonna tell me? Bro, they keep reanimating this stuff. You can't tell me, like, this washed out, like, water paint style looks bad. I will not accept this. If you tell me this is aged poorly, I will become, like, if you tell me this is aged, this is beautiful. This looks dreamy and warm and inviting. This looks so good. All of these scenes. This right here. It looks like so inviting. It's just so good. It's so good. Like this right here. It's beautiful. It looks like you're reading something. It's so good. Anyway, back to Charlie. It's the middle that's the problem.
They're going back and redoing the anime from what I've read, like the earlier seasons, to, you know, breathe some more life into it, which I think is a good call. And I just really was not into it. I wasn't sold on.
It's the guard reflections and shadows and reflections on the skin that makes it look bad. Yeah, I think so too. I think they did, like, some of the reflections and shadows, they were, like, too pronounced.
Characters, it just moved so slow that it was just this hypnotic fugue state it was putting me in every time I put this fucking thing on. You might remember in my first couple of years on this journey, I was talking about how I literally couldn't finish episodes because I would just fall asleep. It was the actual cure to insomnia. I would turn on an episode, 30 seconds later, I'm going honk shoe. Like, I'm going me. Without, like, I'm committing to trying to watch the episode, but I just can't because it's so fucking boring. And there's glimmers of greatness in the earlier seasons. Like, one of the ones people always point to is Arlong Park. I think that arc super duper sucks.
One Piece shit. Let me look at that.
There are some really great elements to it. Greatness in the earlier seasons. Like, one of the ones people always point to is Arlong Park. I think that arc super duper sucks. But there are some really great elements to it, like the classic Nami scene, which I'm sure all of you have at least watched pieces of, where she's stabbing her arm with the Arlong tattoo on it, and Luffy comes in. It's very emotional, and it's really well done. But what you don't know is that it's surrounded by the most boring shit ever. That it, like, when you get to that point, it's refreshing, and then it goes right back to being boring. So I just did not like the early season of this show. But
elaborate. Elaborate. I really liked Arlong Park. Arlong Park felt like a spin. I think I even compared this to it, right? It felt like a spin on almost like the Negan way of storytelling, where this dude comes in and he gives you the supposed deal, and until you abide by the deal, seemingly everything is fine, but the deal is real bad. The deal is real bad. And then there's the Nami betrayal and all of that. And obviously the whole tattoo subculture is also really, really cool. I've got no idea what he's yapping about. Okay, let me look at the One Piece Shida. What is that? I'm just gonna go into this just in case. Yep, this right here. I don't like the way this looks. This also is what? I don't. This is really, 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 really bad. This is okay-ish. This, yeah. This is like, it looks good, but it looks too clean. This right here. It looks so clean that it's, look at this. Look at the highlights on his face. It just looks too pronounced and too clean. I don't like this. Oh, this is an animator for One Piece? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was not a fan of this. It's way too clean. It looks artificial in a weird way.
Like episodes 300. If you, for some reason like me, buckle down and just say, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. We're gonna do it live. And you get to like Enies Lobby and Water 7, it really starts to pay off. Because I think those arcs actually start to push the show forward, and it gets this upward trajectory, this great momentum, and it carries it so well into Impel Down, into Marineford, which I still think is the best arc in the entire series.
Objectively wrong. The best arc of the series is Return to Sabaody and Sabaody itself. Marineford, you can argue it's like a top 3, top 5 arc. Sabaody, Return to Sabaody, the greatest duology in the entirety of One Piece.
Even after finishing Wano, and then it loses its footing again because it goes to Fishman Island, which is an absolute stain. That is an
The problem with Fishman Island is its placement, not the arc.
Front to God himself that arc even exists in the show, but there are some good moments.
No, it's not. Stop yapping, Charlie.
And I know that narratively it's extremely important. Like, there, you can't skip it, but you're gonna wish you could. After Fishman Island,
no.
We go back to greatness. It starts to be good again.
No. Punk Hazard is the middest mid of all mids.
And it's in no small part thanks to One Piece helping to cover up some blemishes with what I know was some pacing problems with things like Punk Hazard, as I mentioned, and Dressrosa. But with One Piece coming in there and putting some makeup on it, Dressrosa is nearly a masterpiece. I still think this arc has the best villain in the entire show.
Doflamingo is awesome.
Finished Egghead. But I think Dofi, best villain in One Piece, hands down. And another thing that helps with these later...
Is that true? Doflamingo, best villain in One Piece? I mean, he's got to be up there. He's definitely got to be up there. He is easily one of the best. Top 3, definitely. I'm just thinking, like, who else would I put up there? I think the introduction of Lucci, and really CP9 as a whole, that has to be up there for me, because that came out of nowhere. Kaido? Kaido's not really for me. Because a bunch of characters nowadays, it's like Buggy. Buggy's no longer a villain. And like Blackbeard kind of seems... Blackbeard's always doing stuff. So I don't think you should put him really in the top. Doflamingo's real good, though. I have to think about that. It's a fair take, though.
Later episodes, is the animation is getting better. It's becoming more popular, it's getting more money, so as these seasons were coming out, they had more budget, and they put more into it, and you can start to see it. So the fights are flashier, the animation is smoother, it pops more, it's more vibrant, it feels a lot better to watch. So I really think One Piece is a show, and I know this is a cliche, that if you give it a try, there's a good chance you might not like it, but if you stick with it, there's a good chance you will like it. I have actually started agreeing with that really large take, and I mean...
This is one of those things that I always struggle with, because, like, one part of my brain is like, this shouldn't be a thing, right? This shouldn't be a thing. You cannot tell someone. This is the same thing with video games, with TV shows, with whatever. You cannot tell someone, spend 200 hours of your life doing this, and then you will like it. No, it should be so that you start watching it and you immediately like it. But this is true for so many things. Like, there are people who I've told watch Attack on Titan, and they start watching season 1, and they're just like, this seems like a survival series. And I'm just like, bro, I want to tell you so bad. I want to tell you so bad, but I can't because it's huge spoilers. And imagine talking about One Piece with someone who has barely seen, like, the East Blue. I would say they're doing too much with the animation. I agree with you. This, not only do I agree with you, Toei agrees with you. Because they said, yeah, we did too much, and then they pulled back. I watched the first 30 episodes and forgot everything. That's sad. That's sad. You should watch One Piece. I say that to people who I want to make watch Made in Abyss. Made in Abyss is another series that I feel like it's easy to drop along the way.
Large. I'm talking fucking Wumbo Double D titty take. That One Piece is...
Wait, hold up. What was
agreeing with that really large take, and I mean large. I'm talking fucking Wumbo Double D.
I was very confused what the context was.
One Piece is one of the best written pieces of fiction ever conceived. The depth of this show is unreal. I am in awe by how well written this universe is of One Piece. So I am very happy that I stuck with it and pushed through because it has become one of my favorite properties. Like, as I made an update like 6 months ago, maybe even longer, where like I have been so into the show that I actually started playing the card game, literally going to tournaments to compete in the One Piece card game.
He's been playing a lot.
I've started to love the IP. And
I think the last video he did on One Piece was just like him talking about the card game for 15 minutes. But yeah, the fact that like this is one of the most expansive universes ever conceived, I do think that's a pretty fair take.
I initially got dogpiled by the One Piece fandom for my Luffy take, like a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe. I don't even remember how long it's been, because I just was not liking Luffy. He was like my least favorite main character. And I'm going to wiggle my finger and say, why are you booing me? I'm right. I stand by my take where the early seasons with Luffy, I don't think he is the strongest character. It's very underwhelming when the big fight is brewing that Luffy has to be nerfed by either being too stupid to protect
I do think this is a thing where Oda removes certain characters from certain situations so that they can solve the problem easily enough. I do think this is an actual thing in the same way Oda always does countdowns. It's just a thing he does. It very often pops up, and it is sometimes like Luffy is literally too strong. Please get rid of him for now.
Participate, where he gets himself locked in the belly of a snake, which I still find to be just so fucking frustrating.
Like taking out Levi, exactly. When a character is so powerful, you have to artificially remove him from the plot. You know, like, there should have been another way of doing it, you know? Because if it becomes a trend, people are going to notice it and it's going to be annoying. Unless show gets to the cultural status of One Piece, I wouldn't give it a chance if it doesn't capture me in the first couple of episodes. Same.
Or where they have him nerfed, then he can't participate at optimal efficiency for a variety of reasons. I don't find that to be fulfilling. I find that to just be really lackluster, and that happened a lot in the earlier arcs of One Piece. So I don't think he ever had a chance to shine.
I think, by the way Wano did this is probably one of the greatest examples of that. And I mean greatest examples in the actual, not like the worst example, but like the actual best example. Luffy sees Kaido in Act 1 and says, I'm punching that guy. And he does. Like, Luffy literally sees the main baddie. There is no weirdness at all. He locks in and he tries fighting him. And he just loses. And so for the rest of Act 2, he is not around because he's in jail. And I feel like if there was a way of doing that more regularly, where the Act 1 is actually we try and fight him, but then there's a setback. I think, by the way, that's another reason why Marineford works so well, because that entire saga is basically that. They try fighting in Sabaody, they fail, and then there's a whole saga of that. But yeah, I love this.
But after Marineford,
if Levi's in season 2, Reiner and Bertolt are dead.
That doesn't happen as much. It happens occasionally, but not to the same extent, where Luffy would basically be out of like the main story for quite a while other characters were taking care of like the bulk of it, and then he'll come in and save the day. Like that,
I do think I'm gonna stop again. I do think, by the way, a lot of people have been saying that like a problem with later One Piece is that there are so many characters, and Oda wants to tell the individual stories of all of them. Like, the story is no longer. It feels weirdly paced and not really as fun to follow because we don't follow like certain characters anymore, right? Like, people expected Wano to be the Zoro arc. It kind of was. There was a lot of Zoro on Wano, but it wasn't Zoro's arc in the same way that we had arcs before that were literally just meant for one character, you know? So I do think that is pretty fair.
Formula doesn't happen as much in the later seasons, so he's a lot better. Now I like Luffy. I enjoy Luffy a lot. He is front and center, especially in Wano, and even when he is nerfed, he's not really nerfed. Like when he's got the Sea Prism Stone handcuffs on, he's in the prison for a while, he's still not nerfed because he's still training. Like, he is using that as an opportunity to train with his hockey. And
the biggest thing is not that he's training, is the fact that he literally tried being front and center. He tried fighting, but he just lost.
That works now because he's no longer just written out for a while where he's just dealing with some kind of boring side quest or chore like in the snake's belly. Now he is actively doing things to work towards the bigger goal with the rest of the crew. So it's a lot better. So those are my overall thoughts on the show.
By the way, you might notice a common trend. This is the same thing why I think Sanji is annoying, especially in Fishman Island, because he is just nerfed and made dumb for no reason, and it's annoying. It's the same thing as if I always use this example. People tell me like Sanji's not that bad. Imagine if Zoro randomly wandered off and caused the entire crew to be in danger. That would be stupid. That has never happened.
I want to get specific on Wano since that's the one that I have been in for a long time. It's also the longest arc in the series.
By a long shot.
It goes for a long time. I will say, biggest critique of it drags. Even using One Piece and even transitioning from One Piece to Onigashima pace, it still does just drag. And I know this has kind of become infamous.
What is Onigashima pace? I just thought that was the One Piece for Onigashima. Is there something even different than One Piece?
There is just a chase that lasts for like fucking 40 episodes. I don't exactly know how many episodes it lasts, but like there is one group of characters. I'm trying not to get into like big spoilers, even though I know most people watching this are already One Piece fans. Still, just in the slim chance someone's watching this and curious on it, I don't want to ruin it for them. But there is a group of characters that are engaged in just this long chase sequence that just goes on for so many episodes, and it feels like every time it cuts to that, you just roll your eyes and you want it to be over.
This feels like he's talking about Whole Cake. Is there a chase in Wano? There is the chase in Wano, and it is with Big Mom. Now that I think about it, in Onigashima, there is the chase with Big Mom, ironically enough. But that's about it. That's like the only one that comes to mind.
Because it doesn't really do much. It's just too long. It's nauseating. And that's really my main harsh critique. There's some other things I could nitpick, but I'm not going to bother.
Oh, okay, so Onigashima pace is basically a different version of One Piece, but now they've joined forces, okay.
Overall, I think the arc is super fucking strong. I love Odin. I think Odin is great, and Odin becomes this wonderful vessel that you get to experience the past of One Piece through, where you get to learn a lot about Rogers and Whitebeard. It's so good. Like, I think that is so good. And
my only criticism with Odin was that he was always going to be overshadowed by Roger, and he was. I call it the Roger flashback. It's not the Roger flashback, it's the Odin flashback.
An entertaining character that on the surface is very silly, but he's also extremely powerful, like the only person that was able to hurt Kaido. And
yeah,
the
that's big, that's
animation is so good in this season that all of the fights are really joyous to watch, whereas, again, in earlier seasons, a fight is the fights aren't really rewarding. Like, you're not watching One Piece for the fights in the early seasons, but in Wano, I can absolutely see people that just tune in to watch these fights because they're really fucking good.
I watched every single main Wano fight after already being caught up with the manga. 100% true. The fights were cinema. Zoro versus King is still probably my favorite fight in all of One Piece. Not the actual fight, just the anime episode.
So, Odin is great. All of his retainers around him are great, and also
fair point. Same for Zoro. No matter what Zoro did in Wano, he's going to be overshadowed by Luffy. True. Like episode 1115 was always going to overshadow all of Wano. That moment of Luffy basically, like, he would obviously still have to win the fight, but in that moment, he truly becomes an emperor of the sea, basically. And I feel like that moment will be burned in the minds of literally everyone. Like, for me, if I had to rank the absolute, like, Luffy top moments, I think I would put 1015 above actual Gear 5 reveal. Just because of how raw that moment of him standing up on the rooftop was.
Boy howdy do they introduce a lot of
and
characters.
Gear 5 is
not just
awesome.
His retainers, but the headliners, the pleasurers, the spagooters. Like, there are so many different characters that get introduced here with so many different groups. It's hard to keep track of all of them, and a lot of them don't really serve much of a purpose. Some of them are just fucking thrown into the shitter at some point to be forgotten about. Didn't really add anything except for like a couple cool.
It's just Oda doing the Oda thing and writing probably a book on every character.
Gets introduced that is a standout in this arc is Yasue. What a great and tragic character who does something that I hadn't seen the show explore before. Not going to spoil what it is, but I really love that character and what they do and bring to this arc. And in a close second for best new character introduced in the arc, Yamato. I mean, I think that's a given. If you've watched Wano, I imagine you probably like this character. Also,
Yamato's
it brings
cool.
Ace back into the story. Which
People
is
were
super
real
nice,
mad, but Yamato's
and
cool.
Overall, Yamato slaps. So really, there's a ton of characters that get introduced. Yes, some of them you can wipe your ass with because they don't do much, but there are so many that get introduced that are extremely good.
I think later One Piece is always walking a tightrope between writing a world that Oda always likes to do. Like all of these characters that Charlie's talking about, they don't do anything, but they create like a holistic experience that if they weren't there, it wouldn't be like. It's basically like the sum of its parts is greater than like the whole thing, you know. I love this.
Yamato, Kanjuro, also not a new character.
You need all that extra,
what Kanjuro goes
extra
through
stuff.
And what happens there, very well done. But without going too deep, overall, it really is kind of a mixed bag. There are times where the writing is great for this arc, and times where it's kind of a disaster. It really is. Like Jack, for example, is terrible. Like
who the hell was Jack? Jack was the big walrus guy.
Hype up Jack,
and by walrus I probably mean mammoth. I don't think walrus is what I mean.
early, before even getting to Wano, Jack has a lot of hype. He's the first, massive, big, scary thing from Wano, and he does nothing. Absolutely, he's a fucking fart in the wind. He is relegated almost like a joke in this arc.
Yeah.
And I just have to ask why. Like, I don't really get why. And Kaido, the big bad, like the ultimate villain of Wano, he's kind of two-dimensional. Like, he's not a very complex character. They spend a little bit of time with his backstory, but not a lot. Like, not to the same degree as someone like Dofi, for example. Like, it was just kind of, Luffy going up against cartoonishly bad guy. And that's a little underwhelming. Like, Big Mom, I think, is a better villain than...
I think there was a lot of subtext with Kaido, and I think we're probably going to see more of that in the inevitable flashbacks, but that might just be me overanalyzing. Because I think, like, the more I look back at it, the more, like, the whole drinking thing and everything like that, and, never having an enemy and yada yada yada, I feel like that's a cool, pretty cool thing that we haven't really seen before from a baddie. But he doesn't have, like, necessarily a backstory of sorts, it's more so based on vibes.
Than Kaido. And I really wanted to love Kaido more than I did, especially because the fight is so cool, but there's just not a whole lot of depth that they give Kaido in this arc. Again, there's a couple things sprinkled here and there, like especially with Odin, like with the fight against Odin, how it came down to Odin basically being deceived by someone on the sidelines, where someone changed their face and it distracted Odin, and then Kaido got the finishing blow on him, and Kaido was so upset with how that ended that he killed the person responsible for that deception. And he shows immense respect to Odin in his final moments before being boiled alive. I guess that's a spoiler. Well, that's not a spoiler because you only learn about Odin through flashbacks. You already go in with the knowledge Odin is dead, so probably not a spoiler. Point is, there's only little tiddlywinks of Kaido development throughout the arc, but overall he just stays as kind of just big bad guy and not much else to him, which I thought was a little disappointing.
To an extent, that is okay.
Like this,
the celestial dragons are just pure. Like, Charlo's being punched, there is no depth to him. Zero depth. Zero depth. He is not only cartoonishly evil, he is so cartoonishly evil that I've talked about this before. It almost falls in the camp of being too evil so as that it completely loses all meaning. It becomes just like a punching bag, right? And you don't really want just like a blatant punching bag. Like Ozai in Avatar, he is just unambiguously bad. There is no more subtext. But he is not, like, literally, you see him, you would punch him in the face, as he is with Charlos,
surrounding character.
Actually, I guess you would probably punch Ozai in the face, too. But there are varying degrees of being miserable,
I thought I actually had more depth. Like, King introduces a whole lot of new stuff to the equation. So, that, I think, is probably the biggest shortcoming when it comes to writing, that the villain just, I think, was a little weak. I still like Kaido as, like, this monstrous, hulking, terrifying presence. Like he is undoubtedly the strongest character we have seen in the show so far. I just wish he was also really well written at the same time.
People are so weird about Kaido's strength. Like, bro knocked out Luffy 4 times. Bro woke up in the middle of the night, fought off all the scabbards, Zoro, Law, Kid, Luffy like 4 times, Yamato, his friggin', what's his face? Momo. And probably someone else that I forgot about. And people are like, nah, Oda nerfed Kaido. While lifting the island, by the way. Exactly. Like, what do you mean? If anything, people should be talking about how Luffy didn't actually beat Kaido. Like, Luffy died. Like, what do you mean?
For the arc. So yeah, overall, I really liked Wano. Like, I think it's a strong arc. It has its shortcomings, but as long as you're using One Piece or Onigashima paste, those shortcomings are much shorter than they would be if you were watching the whole episodes with all of the extracurriculars slapped on there that don't really contribute anything to the actual plot or the development of the arc. So yeah, just wanted to give you my little One Piece update. I will be caught up by the time it comes back from hiatus. One Piece is on hiatus, if you don't know. It's coming back in a few months. I don't really remember when. But I will be fully caught up by then. So yeah, that's really about it. See ya.
So he is fully locked in. Fully locked in. That's good to hear. Good to hear. I'll link this in chat. I'm very glad that Charlie has really enjoyed Wano. I mean, I think if you get to Wano and you're still like, nah, this is not a good series, then like, I don't even know what you're doing with your life anymore. I think by that point, you probably just shouldn't be watching anymore. Maybe One Piece is just not for you, and that's it. But yeah, I mostly agree with a lot of his takes. I mean, I don't really think like the way he talked about the start of the series aging too poorly, that I don't really agree with. But mostly, yeah. Mostly I agree. People should talk about how Oda nerfed Crocodile and Alabasta could demolish Luffy in their final battle if he just uses powers, but no, I have Poisonous Hook, I'd win. I think there's a lot of weirdness with early One Piece and hockey. I think if you look back at early One Piece and think about the concept of hockey, it's sometimes really... It's not necessarily missing completely, because you could still explain a lot about like observation, armament, yada yada yada. But some things when you start looking at, they kind of become flimsy. He's gonna complain about weekly One Piece episodes coming next year. Probably. I'm just looking through a few of the comments. Charlie genuinely just told us that the anime gets better 300. Charlie genuinely just told us the anime gets better 300 episodes in with a straight face. I mean, it's true. I've talked about this myself. One Piece is a literal time capsule of a show. I did a video about this talking about just animation trends in general. One Piece is literally like a time capsule of animation. Every single arc you go through, it's like one extra thing gets added. And before you know it, you go from 4:3 to 16:9. Suddenly, the shading gets more impressive. Suddenly, the line art becomes better. Suddenly, there are just more frames, more animation. And the further you go on, the more and more bells and whistles gets added. This was such an interesting experience just from like a historical anime point of view. I'm glad Charlie's enjoying it. We'll be back next year to hear what he's thinking about Egghead. I feel like he's gonna think Egghead was absolutely insane. Because Egghead compared to everything that came before is wild.